Excellent, excellent, excellent. I just spill hot chocolate all over myself. It's fine. Everything's fine. Everything is well. There's no need to stress. I don't know what I'm doing. I asked for some questions so that you could get to know me a little bit better, because I don't feel like I share that much about myself on the internet. I love yapping. I am the waffle maker. Also, I like answering questions. I feel like I have a specific set of skills that make... No, I'm joking. And I just want to share, a little bit about my personal life, because I feel like the industry I work in can often be a little bit detached from reality. So I've written all the questions down because I'm very organised on this one occasion. Also, I was thinking about this. I have absolutely no... Actually, before I say that, if anyone who works for YouTube is listening to this, this is a lie. I have absolutely no idea of where YouTube stands when talking about sex, relationships and surrounding topics. I'm not looking to ever get monetized on this platform, so I don't think I need to worry about that. I don't really know what I can and can't say in terms of language and discussion. So I'm just going to go balls to the wall and hope for the best. But I'm hoping that because this is educational, it will be okay. I'm also wearing a jumper. I'm wearing a jumper. You can't do anything explicit in a jumper, can you? Actually, we'll get to that later. You absolutely can. Anyway, shall we begin? Starting off strong. Can I even say sex on the internet? Surely. This whole meta censorship, whatever's going on, is really blowing my little brain out of my ear holes, because I'm an adult. I should be able to flag my content as adult so that under 18s cannot access it, and I should be able to say sex. Anyway, are you a sex worker? Yes, I am. Nice to meet you. Did you get a breast reduction? No, they are naturally this perfect. Do you have FetLife? No, I don't actually. I have been thinking about this for a while. I just get very overwhelmed with having multiple things to attend to. I was sort of umming and ahhing between Blue Sky and FetLife being my next, because I keep getting put in Insta jail. Anything I post, they go, no, the sin bin for 5 minutes, and then I have to take everything down. So, no, I don't, but hopefully I will do soon. Do you journal? I do journal. I like to journal at the end of the day because I find it helps me sleep, because my brain is very... Shopping lists, measurements of stuff, my deepest, darkest secrets. Everything is in that book. So Lord help someone who finds it on a train one day when I inevitably leave it behind. You're going to have a great read. I feel like there's something very therapeutic about writing instead of typing. Something really lovely about actually writing on a piece of paper. Are you a Quins fan? No. I intended when I moved to London to find a local team to support. And I do have a Quins top, so maybe that's very misleading. But I wouldn't consider myself a fan. I do like rugby though. Do you like being tied up? I love this. I love the sensation of being tied. For me personally, it's so meditative and soothing. I think a lot of people think about being tied and they think of 50 Shades of Grey, dungeons, they think of really intense, serious, sensual relations. For me, as someone who is very erratic with their energy and a bit all over the place, to have that pressure and that moment of stillness is lovely. When I did some rope sessions, I will tag facilitator Sophia down below, runs just the most immaculate sessions where you learn safety and rope handling and how to communicate with people and how to handle body. Love. Yeah, big fan. What was it like being on the Sidemen video? Ooh, it was really fun. A very random job. The most stressful part of the day was driving up to London and then trying to get into London. I was a hot mess by the time I got there. I might listen back to myself saying this and think, you are a prized plum. But I didn't go into that with any agenda because I had absolutely no need for utilising that platform. I don't mean that to come across in an arrogant way. At the time, I was dancing in clubs, doing performance work. I'd signed a contract to go away to the circus Christmas. I had other plans. I had never been present really on social media, and that wasn't really a plan for me. And so I went into that purely as I have been paid to be here today for this job and do this job right here, right now, really well, and then I'm going to leave and that's going to be it. And so I just treated it like a little fun game, which it was. I know that some people probably go into that situation with a whole agenda of how they're going to be so that they get people's attention. There are a bunch of boys who have done incredibly well by being themselves and gaining an audience based off of their personalities. I'm going to do exactly the same thing and just have a little bit of fun with them. So I didn't know what was going to come out of my mouth. And somebody's asked, how did I get booked? I'm not sure if you mean for that one or for the Valentine's video. It's all done through their production team. The first video that I did, I booked because a girl I did a dance class with had been originally asked to do the video as a stripper. And she was like, I can't do it. Another job's come up. Classic life for us. Can you stand in for me? And I said, sure. She passed me my details and then I got a call from their production team and then we went from there. And the Valentine's one was fairly similar. I think Harry had the idea that he wanted like a dominant woman to go and surprise Chris. So I'm guessing they maybe just thought, oh, we already know somebody, we'll call her, which makes sense. Easy. And I'm grateful for that because it was super, super fun. Rugby boys or football boys? Whichever one is most obedient. I mean, in my experience, rugby boys are much more well behaved. Would you like to visit Milan, Italy soon? I have been to Milan. Very fashiony. I'm a hiker, so I was not too enamoured with Milan, but if you can suggest some good hiking trails, I might go back. I'd lick your foot straight out of a hot, sweaty Ugg boot, and you would love it. Your life would be complete. Would you kiss me if you knew it would be the best kiss of your life? I love these kinds of questions. Would you let a charming 6'7" guy like me take you on a date? Why is the height relevant? I've always wanted neck ache on a first date. I'm sure your height is lovely, but what else? I am 160 metres, 5'3" and 49 kilos. Could you lift me? Yes. I'm actually low-key quite hench. Is there any way you could own me for life, like lifetime registration or something? Are you describing marriage? I would not like that. You know, life is a very, very long time. If we're lucky, maybe you should split your life up into eras or segments. Give yourself some variety in there. I'll have you for a segment. A couple of people asking about doing photo shoots. I would love that. I do love photo shoots. I love modelling when it's creative and there's like a cool theme and just like a really excellent mood board and people are really up for being experimental. Love it. If it's just like a plain fashion, look skinny and look sad, put me in the bin. Have you ever struggled with confidence? Yes and no. The way that I am and the way that my brain works means that I've never really been that dependent on other people's opinions for my own happiness. I've always been incredibly happy doing stuff by myself, going on my own jaunts and not being surrounded by people. So I've never really been that fussed about not having everyone like gassing me up all the time, you know. I was bullied in school because I was just a bit of a nerd. I was a little bit odd, and that's all just character building, isn't it? I think because I'm a dancer, I spent a lot of my time as a kid doing performances, being on stage, so you kind of become quite detached from what's good and bad in terms of other people's opinions of you. If you don't do performance, and if somebody were to come up to you and be like, oh, your hair looks rubbish, you'd be like, oh! What? If you're a dancer or a performer and somebody comes up to you and objectively says something's not good, you're like, oh, that's fine because it's just for the finished product, you know? Which I think is a good skill to have. Also, my confidence got so much better when I started stripping. I just don't care anymore. I feel like I am the soul of an 85-year-old woman in the body of a 26-year-old. I remember going into changing room from swimming when I was younger and being like, this is crazy, all these women are just here naked, and now I am the naked woman. I'm like, I don't care. It's a body. Leave me alone. Let me be. Life's too short. These are all like queries about the industry. Some of these questions I cannot answer on YouTube. What kind of things would a subscriber find on your OF? I like to think that it's not vanilla, but it's soft. I want to always be creating things that genuinely spark joy to me. It's a bit haphazard. A very wide range of topics and interests are covered. I don't know how much I could talk about that on here. It's always authentic and genuine. Nothing is performative. It's a focus on female pleasure, always, or just sheer enjoyment of something. I'm never going to do anything that comes from a place of performance for the male gaze. But if somebody is purely into something which actually doesn't have any root in like sexual pleasure and it's more of a psychological thing, I will absolutely delve into that. I think exploration like that is what makes me tick. I just love learning about what interests people and why they are so into certain things. Love it. Do you do real-time sessions? Yes. Do you peg men? Yes. I want to be your good little boy. Prove it. Dominate me. What's stopping you? Do you ever have female clients? Yes. My doors are open to every single type of person on the planet. I don't care how you identify, as long as you are kind and you're respectful and you know what you want. The more variety, the better. Do you travel to someone? Absolutely. They made it worth my while. How can I serve you as a newbie? If you're saying as a newbie, as in it's not something you've experienced before, really tap into what it is about the serving that you're fascinated by, that you're drawn to, that you think will fulfill you. Because I think a lot of subs will come at servitude from the angle of, I want to feel good by doing anything in my power to make your life easier, which in essence sounds lovely, but you have to remember that it is a two-way street. I am a dominant, I don't stand for particular behaviours and I do not respond to particular behaviours, but when it comes to my professional life, I am still providing a service. Therefore, you must be getting something out of it that is equal and opposite. I understand the attitude of wanting to be a really good sub or wanting to know how you can do the most. But just think about what you enjoy, what your strengths are, what your interests are, why you want to serve, and then take it from there. Because it's really important that you meet a dominant that satisfies those things for you. It goes both ways. What club do you dance at? Nowhere anymore. I dance in my bedroom. The weirdest request I've ever had. I don't know if I'd say any of them are weird. I mean, my standard of weird is definitely not what most people would think are weird. I don't think I can say that on the internet actually. But if you want to know, maybe I'll make another Q&A and I'll post it on my other site. Well, people ask me what's the kinkiest thing that I've tried. Oh, look. People always assume that this is going to be some like crazy, like invasive, filthy thing. But I stand by the fact that the kinkiest memory I have when I was working on cam, and I spent hours on cam with a gentleman who just wanted me to put layers and layers of very specific clothing on. So very specific materials, specific colours. I had to wear each, like, layering up for a certain amount of time. He would ask me how I was feeling, and that was his kink. It's the one situation where I am so intrigued by it because it doesn't compute to me personally. So for me, that's the kinkiest thing. For me, that's crazier than anything else I've ever done because it's wild to me that that act and that process and that session brought somebody so much joy. And we spoke for a really long time afterwards and he was so grateful and he was like, I can't speak to anyone else about this. This is really private. Nobody has any idea that this is something I enjoy. And to me, that was so personal and so intimate. And I stand by that being the kinkiest thing that I've ever done. It's not what the people want to hear, is it? They're like, damn, that's not that cool. I'm like, well, sorry, it's the truth. I want to start stripping. What are your top tips for being successful? Ooh, great question. Congratulations. It is a wild ride. I will be neutral about my stance on stripping because I feel like people come to it for different reasons and you can't judge why somebody's doing it and you can't give advice of whether that's a good thing or not. If it goes well, you stay. If you hate it, you can leave. It's temporary, like everything. My top tips, I'm probably going to be really boring here, and I hope this doesn't like kill your vibe of why you're doing it. Be really vigilant with yourself. You are running a business, and it's weird because it's a nightlife setting. There's alcohol, there's music, people are having a good time, but you are at work. Keep a record of everything because you're going to need it for your expenses and your tax. You also just want to be aware of where you stand financially because it's a very easy job to get caught up in this make money, spend money cycle. Set yourself goals. I feel like in the UK setting goals is hard because the tipping culture is not the same, and so your goals are often solely dependent on how busy the club is, which is so hard to rely on. But I did find that I did better when I was setting myself clear goals of how much I wanted to make that week or that month. Be nice to people. When I started, I was told that a lot of the girls will just keep themselves to themselves. They're at work, they don't want to make friends. Sure, you can keep yourself to yourself, but be nice. Remember that you are not working for anyone though. Remember that you are not employed by them. You are self-employed and you are applying to work at the club where they also work. If they're asking you to do favours, if they're asking you to go on stage more times in the night than you need to go on stage and not getting paid for, remember that you are not working for them. You don't owe them anything. But be nice. Strike the balance. Also, rest, eat well, sleep. It'll feel weird if you're not living with people who also do that job. Because when you're working nights, it becomes very isolating. Do not skip out on sleep. But that's essentially why I had to stop, because I couldn't trust myself to keep in a good routine to look after my health. So try and keep a sense of normality and have fun, because it is a super fun job. You'll meet some really interesting people and you never know where it might take you. And you'll get some crazy stories too. So just look after yourself, you know? Don't be swayed by people who think they know better. You know yourself. Trust your instinct. Why do you think some men want a dominant woman? Why would you advocate a sex worker to provide that dominant experience? I guess this leads into another question where they say, would you ever consider a long-term FLR? Do you know if this dynamic is even plausible? For some people, they want their dominant partner to be their life partner, and they want to have that dynamic within their most personal relationship. I see it happen, but it is possible from what I've gleaned. I don't know what it's like to be in one of those. I've experienced it in small glimpses, but nothing intense. The concept of a dominant is to provide a service over a particular length of time. But I guess when you see people in FLR setups, people then question why it is that you pay dominant professionally for a session. But then I think it's the same as any job. You can clean your own house. But if you want your house cleaned really well, thoroughly, and without you really having to do the legwork of buying the products and putting in the hours, you will hire a professional. Not everyone will. Some people enjoy doing the cleaning themselves. Some people don't. It's as simple as that. There's no other way to explain it in my eyes. I would always advocate for a professional to do a job if you want that job done really well, especially when it comes down to really specific fantasies. If you're willing to miss out on the detail, then sure, go about it in more of a sort of DIY, experimental way. I think it's as simple as that. If you want something done really well and delivered meticulously, go to a professional. What do you think of ABDL in BDSM community? I strongly believe that between consenting adults, you can safely negotiate pretty much any situation to satisfy someone's need and want for a particular activity without it being damaging or distressing to the people involved, provided that you go through the same negotiations and the same boundary setting as anything else, and you can really understand where that person's coming from. It's when things get lost in translation or people forget how careful you have to be with sensitive topics like that, especially with social media and TikTok and people making sensationalised 10-second clips about particular kinks or fetishes. It's so damaging because if thousands and thousands of people see that pop up on their screen and that's all they see, they have absolutely no context, they have no background of that person or where they're coming from, and it just becomes very, very warped. You can explore every single crevice of your brain with somebody who knows how to administer the correct aftercare, ask the right questions, and just basically not leave that person in a vulnerable state, I think is the most important thing. But also I'm not qualified really to speak on that because that's not a topic that I'm versed in. So I'm just saying that from my own opinion. But I'm sure there's many, many, many more people who could give you a really, really in-depth explanation on that topic. How do I find like-minded people like me who want to push their boundaries? Go to events, go to munches, go to pre-drink events for parties. Get out there and actually speak to people. I know it sounds it's easier said than done, and I know that it's not accessible for everyone. I know that there's certain threads on Reddit and such, but I really am not one that advocates for creating purely digital connections. If you have the option to go and meet people face to face, especially within this community, I do think it's better. It just avoids a lot of the mishaps and exploitation that can often happen when people are behind a screen. Riot Party UK always have pre-drink events before their parties where you can go and meet people. There's also a group chat where people organise munches, which is, if you're not familiar, it's more of like a neutral setting where you just go and speak to people about your plans and your like interests and see if you align with anyone that you might want to potentially see in another context. But most events will do some sort of sober hang, well, not necessarily sober hang. People often go to bars or, get a pint or whatever. Also, Field is great. It's a dating app, but it allows you to be more specific. If you're into a specific thing, you can be really, really particular with what you put on your profile. It's not as wishy-washy as something like Tinder or Hinge. There's less pretending. People know why you're there. It's not this kind of like, yeah, sure, I want a long-term relationship, and then actually I just want to kiss your feet. You can just kiss my feet. Just say from the beginning, I just want to kiss your feet. That is a great way of meeting people who will really align with what you're seeking to explore. And also you might find some people who will teach you things as well, which is wonderful. My partner is very reserved. Any tips to make her more adventurous? Consent. The phrase, I'm sure it didn't mean to come across like this, to make her more adventurous, it's not going to happen. If you particularly are really keen to explore something with a partner who is not necessarily showing the same interest as you, you have to have an open conversation. You have to say, hey, this is something I'm really intrigued by, interested in, know that I like, / need from my partner. How do you feel about that? Because if you go about any kind of behaviour that is in turn manipulating your partner to become a certain way without them giving consent as to what they're really being led into, big no, big no. So if you were to say, hey, I've booked this really fun thing for us to go do together, how would you feel? And then they turn up and it's a full-on sex party. Let's not even say why that's a bad idea. So you need to just have an open and honest conversation. I've been in relationships where I have thought the person I'm seeing is so far from where I'm wanting to be in terms of this community. And then a simple conversation around my own likes and dislikes has then opened this whole wonderful chasm of possibilities. Assuming your partner is a cis woman, my experience with other cis women is that we have been and continue to be shamed a lot harder and more frequently than cis men in terms of sexuality and expression and how you engage in sexual activities. And so it is not unusual for heterosexual relationships to consist of a guy who is really ready to, let his hair down, and a woman who is still not sure where to place herself in terms of her sexuality, because all you get told as a woman is don't get pregnant, don't get a disease, don't be a slag. And then at some point in your life you go, I really want to start exploring and realising what I like and how I can experience pleasure, and you don't know how to do that because you've never been taught how. It's really important that you create a really safe and understanding space and say, you are allowed to do this. You are worthy of pleasure, you are worthy of exploration before you even touch on what that person might enjoy. You need to create an environment that says, hey, this might be new to you, but we deserve to have a really rich, pleasurable, intimate relationship. Fantastic resources and creators. One that springs to mind is Better Sex Blog. Excellent at talking about logistics of sex and also just encouraging people to just be more open and get the sex ed you never got that we all needed. That is all the questions that I have got this time. I'm sorry if I missed any. It was fun. I hope that this gave you a little bit more insight into my work and life. Maybe I should do like some story times. I have so many stories from when I was working in clubs and my interactions with particular clients that I would love to tell here. So I'm going to try and cherry pick a few that I know I could talk about without getting cancelled. But if you want to find me, you can find me at my website or my Instagram. I also have TikTok, where I just post silly videos because we need joy in the world. I don't know what you say at the end of a video. What do you do? And I'll speak to you soon. Bye! That's like the worst sign off ever. Bye! Peace.